The Freaky Flat by Katie Dale, illustrated by Isabelle Duffy. Chapter 1. Freddie loved dogs. He begged for a pet dog on every birthday, but each year his dad said the same thing. You can have a dog when you're 8, then you'd be old enough to look after it properly. Freddie had been counting down the days to his 8th birthday and only had a month to go. But then he got the terrible news. I'm really sorry, Freddie, Dad said. We're going to have to move into a flat. We can't afford this house anymore. Oh no, Freddie cried, but I'll miss all my old friends. Don't worry, said Dad. We're only moving round the corner and you'll actually be closer to your friends. Phew, Freddie grinned, relieving. Moving didn't sound so bad after all. The only problem is, Dad said, looking anxious, they don't allow dogs in the flat. What? Freddie cried. But I've waited my whole life for a dog. I'm sorry, buddy, Dad said, hugging him. If there was the only other way. This is so unfair, Freddie yelled, rushing to his room. His room soon would be his room anymore. This was the worst day ever. Chapter 2. Freddie was still feeling glum on moving day. As he unpacked all the toys, Dad walked into Freddie's room carrying a box. I bought you an early birthday present to cheer you up, Dad said, smiling. Would you like it now? Freddie shrugged. But then the box rustled. Freddie's heart lifted. Could it be a puppy after all? He eagerly took the lid off to find a fluffy brown hamster. Freddie's heart plummeted. I know how much you wanted a pet, Dad said, smiling hopefully. Thanks, Freddie mumbled, unable to hide his disappointment. He didn't want just any pet. He wanted a puppy he could cuddle, play, and have adventures with. Boring Boris, the hamster, was the total opposite, and all he did was sleep all day long. When Freddie finally went to bed in his new room that night, he felt gloomier than ever. But then, in the middle of the night, Freddie heard a strange noise. His eyes flew open. There was again a strange scratching sound. It sounded like a monster. Chapter 3. Dad! Freddie yelled. Freddie, are you all right? Dad gasped, rushing in and turning on the light. I heard a monster, Freddie cried. Listen! His dad frowned and listened. Silence! Perhaps you were dreaming? Dad said gently. There's no such thing as monsters, buddy. Freddie frowned. He was sure he hadn't imagined it. Can I sleep in your room tonight? Dad smiled. Oh, of course. Freddie couldn't hear the scratching noise from Dad's room. Perhaps he had dreamt it after all. But the next day, Freddie couldn't find his favorite toy dogs. Perhaps you haven't unpacked them yet, Dad suggested. I've unpacked everything, Freddie insisted. I played with them yesterday. They can't have just disappeared, Dad reasoned. Freddie frowned, then he had a horrible thought. What if the monster took them? Oh, Freddie, Dad sighed. I told you, there's no such thing as monsters. But I heard strange noises and now my toys are missing, Freddie argued. Dad sighed again. If you unpack some of these boxes, I'm sure you'll find your toys. Freddie frowned. Why didn't Dad believe him? Chapter 4. Freddie searched everywhere for his toy dogs. but he couldn't find them anywhere. There must be a monster, Boris, Freddie told his hamster. There's no other explanation. But boring Boris was still asleep. Freddie, come here, Dad called suddenly. Freddie hurried into the hallway and found Dad holding the phone wire, which had been cut in two. Did you do this? Dad demanded. No, of course not, Freddie insisted, staring at the severed wire. The phone was working yesterday. It must have been the monster. What's it going on? Oh, Freddie, don't be silly, Dad said crossly. It's it's the only explanation of the strange noises and my missing toys and the cut phone wire, Freddie insisted. That must be why this flat was so cheap, because it's got the monster. A monster that doesn't want us to live here. We should move out. That's enough, Dad snapped. Is that what this is all about? You made up the noises in the night, hid your own toys, and now cut the phone wire? All because you're upset about not getting a dog? No, Freddie protested. I didn't do any of those things. It's the only explanation, Dad argued. I think you should go to your room. This is so unfair, Freddie yelled, slamming his bedroom door behind him. He hated this freaking flat more than ever. Chapter 5. That night, Freddie heard the strange scratching noises again. He swallowed hard. He'd proved to his dad that he wasn't lying, that there was a monster. He tried to switch on his bedside lamp, but nothing happened. Goosebumps prickled down Freddie's arms. Bravely, he fumbled around in the dark, found his torch. He shone the light in every corner of his room, under his bed, even in his wardrobe. Nothing. Then he heard the scratching sound again. It was coming from outside his room. Carefully, Freddie tiptoed into the hallway. He could hear a strange rumbled sound now, too. He took a deep breath and followed the rumbling sound into the kitchen. It was just a washing machine. Phew! Maybe he was imagining things. But then Freddie heard the scratching sound again, louder than ever. Freddie tiptoed into the lounge and shone his torch behind the sofa, under the coffee table, even in Boris' cage. But there was nothing, not even Boris. Oh no! Freddie felt awful. He hadn't wanted a hamster, but he didn't want Boris to get eaten by a monster. Poor Boris hadn't done anything wrong. Suddenly, Freddie heard the sound of heavy footsteps right behind him. Chapter 6. It was Dad! Freddie, Dad said crossly. What are you doing up in the middle of the night? I heard the monster, Freddie stammered. It's eaten Boris. Oh, Freddie, Dad sighed. There's no such thing as... He was interrupted by a loud scratching sound. Freddie and Dad looked at each other wide-eyed. Dad held Freddie's hand tightly, and they tiptoed towards the sound. Freddie held his breath, and his dad shone his torch towards the noise. Boris! Dad cried. He's alive? Freddie gasped happily. Thank goodness, Dad said. Yes, Dad said, and he's very naughty. He pointed to Boris, who was nibbling for the phone wire. Oh, Boris, Freddie cried, scooping him up gently. I'm so glad you're all right. How did you escape the monster? I think Boris was the monster, Dad laughed. He was making the scratching sound. He nibbled through the wires and look, Dad, peered into Boris' cage, where Freddie's toy dogs were nestled in a straw. He must have been lonely, Freddie cried. Poor Boris, how do we get him out of his cage? Look, his empty water bottle is next to his cage, Dad said. He must have drunk all the water, pushed it out, then escaped through the hole. That's my fault, Freddie said guiltily. I didn't check that Boris had enough water. I'm sorry, I haven't been looking after you very well, Boris. Boris sat up in Freddie's hand and tiddled his head on one side. He may not be a puppy. He was very cute, soft, adventurous, and definitely not boring. Right? I think Boring Boris needs a new name, Freddie grinned. From that night on, Freddie slept soundly, knowing there was nothing to be afraid of. Instead, he had his very clever, very adventurous pet. Freddie cuddled and played with him, had adventures every evening, and loving his hamster with all his heart. And Monster became the most loved, best cared of pet hamster ever.